Good morning to everybody. Is this my voice is audible to everyone? Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So, welcome to the students of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University for the second semester classes. Yesterday, I was talking about executive systems and functions. All of them I have finished, right? Today, we shall discuss about another chapter. We should understand legislature. Okay. What is the legislature? Generally, when I said it in the theory of separation, go to the page number 88. That was the first unit, the eighth unit that was in legislature. The major responsibility of a legislature was that making of laws. Okay. So here, whole responsibility in terms of making of laws shall be taken into the consideration by one and only the department legislature. Legislature, the work which it can be classified into the and to different level. For example, the making of laws responsibility will be taken by the central government by the help of parliament. Okay, parliament which consists of the two houses, one is in Rajya Sabha, another one is in Lok Sabha. Along with the president, the bills are to be going into the act, isn't it? Similarly, if you could take it as this, here the method, then legislature. If you could see the legislature in terms of UK as well as that other countries will be the process of legislature in order to making of law will be differ from country to country. Let's say, for example, you know that UK, USA, India, certain countries will consist of a bicameral legislature. Means the law which it can be prepared by the help of two houses. As in India, we could see we are following the bicameralism. Bi in the sense two. Cameral legislature means which it can follow the two houses over here. Similarly, if you could see in the states of Telangana also, we have, this Vidhana Sabha, Vidhana Parishad. As it is resembles into the parliament, if you could see Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The making of the law procedure, which why I gave this example is that it's a differ to country, what I mean to say, right? Isn't it? Then UK, USA, and India, which consists of the bicameral legislature, where there is two houses which consist in the process of making of law. For example, New Zealand and Denmark, if you could see that the other countries like USA and the New Zealand, Turkey, that Denmark, all other countries which consist of one house, which is an unicameralism procedure. Is that clear to everyone? So this country to country, it will be differ while making of this laws. Okay. So when it comes to the point of a legislature, popular, it is symbolic of a popular representation. Generally, the legislature, where it can execute its responsibility in a different ways. Generally, here I said in a parliament which consists of the two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Who will be the members of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? Can anybody tell me that? Member of Parliament. Isn't member of parliamentarians how they do come? Through election procedure. Isn't it? Through election procedure they'll come. Okay. So here elections and electoral method is another word parliamentarians will come into the power. Similarly, the methods of elections and votings will be in differ from one another, isn't it? Let's say, for example, in the methods of elections and voting. See, in MLA, elections, we follow the one method where there's a representative voting system where people can cast their vote and elect them. If the Rajya Sabha, it's a method which it can be indirect elections. We follow the nomination method, isn't it? Like similarly, if you go to the similarly in the houses of state, Vidhan Sabha, Vidhana Parishad, there would be a different one where we can say the differential vote system where we can find out easily, isn't it? So in the process of this voting, we also follow the different levels of votings like EVM through the EVMs, single transferable vote, and all of them we follow. Like people have provided and full of vote rights in India in order to elect the leaders who are being the representative system. The voting systems of India that it can be called as a universal adult franchise, isn't it? The right to vote is called a franchise. It will be given to the people who have possessed the crossed the age of 18 years, are being provided with the right to vote. This is known as adult franchise in India. Further, this adult franchise is guaranteed to all the citizens, irrespective of their caste and creed and religion and race and gender. Hence, generally, it is popularly known as universal adult franchise. Okay, as if you could see here, no country provides voting rights to minors. Say, for example, below 18 years in India, which it can be considered as a minors. So below, 18 years, the boys or anyone who will not be get any kind of vote in Indian as per the India's constitution, isn't it? So generally, universal adult franchise can be practiced throughout the world on the basis of the age factor. In the 18 years, those who have passed, they shall be provided a kind of an outright to them, isn't it? So through this universal adult franchise, elected the we elected, a kind of legislature through the election method. They will be in there in the parliament, especially in the house of Lok Sabha, isn't it? All the Lok Sabha people would be follow the method of this, elections only. But Rajya Sabha, it's an indirect election. You can also call it as a nomination method. We follows there itself, isn't it? Why do we call the indirect elections? Means we elect them in representatives, but these representatives are the nominated people in the Rajya Sabha, isn't it? So, as organizations of the legislature, which it can be put into the two different types, as I have said, unicameralism and bicameralism. What is a unicameralism? Go to the page number 91, and where is and I'll explain that and what is the meaning of the unicameralism. See, the system of organization in a legislature, its work can be classified on the grounds of two types. One is an uni. See, some works and of the country will makes it out the law with the help of one, house. Say, for example, in the parliament, if you could not think about that, there shall be, unicameralism. The two houses, if it is not there, that shall be called it as a unicameralism, isn't it? See, here is that in the presently, the system of unicameral legislature is prevalent in the few nations across the world. One is New Zealand, Denmark, Sweden, Greek, Turkey, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and other countries are being set up by an unicameral structure. What is it, unicameral? Uni means single. Cameralism in the sense, the way of making of legislative process which follows a single house system. Where do we find out that these kind of a single house systems here is that in a New Zealand, Denmark, Sweden, Greek, and Turkey, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, and other countries which has which we can see a kind of a thing, unicameral legislature. But truly, out of these countries also, they are actually changing their sum. The countries that originally favored a single chamber included France and Spain and Portugal, Mexico, in many other countries, which we follow such kind of a single scam in single system of culture. So as there would not be a chance of to see a kind of a two houses in the process of making of law. Truly, we see the interventions of the unicameral structure in the process of making of law, isn't it? In the law making process, then only the thing which it can be determined and decides by the unicameral structure. So this is a one kind of an unicameralism structure which we follow in India in the process of making of laws. Similarly, bicameralism. What does it mean, bicameralism? Isn't it? The bicameral legislature, if you could see, it is more prevalent in India. Okay, and also the many other countries also has been in following the unicameral structure. Sorry, bicameral structure. What is it, bicameral structure? There would be, I mean, two houses in the lawmaking process. What is that? And there will be two houses in the lawmaking process that it shall be called it as an, I mean, bicameralism. See, if you could see the bicameralism, most probably it is a prevalence in many of states. So, for example, in India, we see the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha bicameral structure. In the states also, we have in within India, some states also been following the bicameral structure, like Vidhan Sabha and Vidhana Parishad. So, such kind of a system which it can comes under the purview of this bicameralism structure, isn't it? So, as legislative function, by establishing of legislative on all of them, what actually does it? Yesterday, I was telling you that executive will have its own responsibility in order to make something better for the country. Like say, for example, in order to implementation of laws, in order to implementations of, I mean, the goods and services to the people, in order to understand the people's problem, and all of them that we have seen in the status of this. Executive. But what does it mean, the legislative functions? The first functions of legislative, if you could see that, legislative functions here is that, no, to making of law. The first and foremost responsibility is that to making of laws. And in, you know that here in the legislative functions, if you could see that, it has a more, I mean, inclinations towards to making of laws, any sort of the laws which it can be helpful for the people, isn't it? Such as an important functions of legislative formulate laws, like, whether it is an emergency law, whether it is an urgent law, whether it is an, I mean, needful law, whether it is an international law, whether it is a defense law, whether it is an any sort of the law, that it shall comes under the legislative function where laws are being prepared for the welfare of the country. And it is also the expressions of the will of the people. What people think in order to, I mean, to by listening that the laws which has been provided for a convenient of the people over here. There's a major responsibility which is given to the legislator over here. And also at the same time, this works also they conduct the, I mean, sessions in the legislative functions. If you see, not only it's been and developed the laws, but also they have discussions on the particular law. If any certain changes are to be required, that it shall be changed under this legislative functions, isn't it? Generally, if you could see in India, under the parliamentary forms of government, the executive prepare the proposed legislation in the forms of bills. The cabinet discuss the proposal and introduce it to legislature. After going through various stages of passage of the bill, there is a certain procedure. Like say, for example, if you would like to submit, there is a procedure which we can call the process of submission of the bill. The bill also which is differ. There is a kinds and types of the bill. One is a finance bill, money bill, and also the ordinary bill. All such kind of the bills which can be decided. So all this related to the and irrespective of the bills, and all the bills can be discussed under the legislature. That is also one of the finest, I mean, responsibilities and functions of the legislature, isn't it? And also at the same time, they go on debate on the particular issue in the, I mean, house. For example, right to privacy, other linkage to the bank account, okay, like demonetization policy, or any sort of the thing which is not in a favor of the people, that it can be discussed and debate under the legislative function. I know you might have seen in many times in the TVs then how opposition parties and how, I mean, these parties will discuss in all of them, isn't it? So you know very well, and all these things and how it shows an impact in order to making of the last, isn't it? And also at the same time, legislative functions, the first legislative functions after, there is also another functions which we can call the constituent functions. What are the constituent functions over here? Isn't it? The legislature in some countries, if you could see here, and about act as a constituent assembly to frame the basic law of the land. The Constitution, Parliament in Britain, and both the legislature body and constituents. Likewise, in Indian Constitution, an Assembly acted legislature from 1946 to 1950. If you see that, after the constitutions came into the operation 1950, the Indian Parliament is performing the certain constitutional functions such as amending the. See, constituent functions isn't basic. I mean, isn't mandatory functions to this. I mean, mandatory functions to this. Well, functions of legislative. Go to the page number 94. You will find out this. Okay. Deliberative function. These deliberative, another one, constitutional functions is that it works on the constitution. It prepares the laws which is based on the constitution, and it works for the betterment of a nation. If anything required to make certain changes, that it shall be changes. Say for example, and bifurcating of Telangana state from Andhra Pradesh. There was an constitutional provision means in order to uh, that in order to making of new states, in order to change the boundaries of the new state, all such things we shall comes into the purview of this. And also the same time, Article 368 prescribes a procedure to amendment. See, anything which it can be amended in the constitutional provision, constitutional power, if anything need to be go with the change, okay, that it shall be taken to the takes by the legislature. So there is also another function. Any kind of an amendment against the Constitution of India, any kind of an inclusion into the constitution, and all of such things will shift comes under the purview of this. Constituent functions. Next one, deliberative function. Generally, the word itself, what kind of deliberative functions? The functions of the legislature can be broadly classified into the 5 to 8 types. What are them here in the sense? The first one, which I told you that constituent functions as well as the legislative functions, and also at the same time deliberative functions. And here we have an executive functions, financial functions, and judicial function, and electoral functions, ventilation of grievances, miscellaneous function. All the functions are comes into the purview of responsibility of this. Legislature. What they do in the in the functions of legislature as deliberative function. What does it mean, deliberative function? In fact, the term of the parliament, if you could see, which actually denoted indirectly, directly as a parliament, isn't it? One second.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir, speak up.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, speak up. Is that my voice is audible?
Yes, sir. Sir,
Please
please,
ask.
can I know, sir, lesson name? I am confused.
Legislature, legislature, unit 8.
Unit 8.
Ah,
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
got it a page number, everybody. And there's a lesson I'm teaching you that in legislative, organs of the government often after the separation of power. In this one, I said about first legislative functions. What are the functions? Constituent functions. And then after in the page number 94, there is the deliberative functions. What is the deliberative functions of legislature? How it does and how it is performed. See in the term parliament, which is used to be denoted a legislature in Indian context. Okay, as derived from a French word parler, which means to talk and discuss. What is the meaning of parliament here in the sense? Means This parliament is a word which we are derived from the French word. The meaning of the French word is that in the talk and discuss. Parliament means talk and discuss and deliberate. Okay. So as if you could see that parliament, when within the name itself, when it is says that discuss and deliberate, and it, for example, in the complex problem, it provides a solution for such issues. Say, for example, international trade is very difficult for us. Okay. In keeping in view of that, it makes it out and better thing, isn't it? So all this kind of a responsibility, the kind of a responsibility and this on a particular bills, discuss on a particular committees, discuss on a particular problem, discuss on a particular solution, discuss on a particular reforms. All such things can be discussed under the deliberative function, as it was one of the functions of the legislative. The another functions which gives to the, legislature of the country is that an executive function. What is an executive functions here? The legislature in some countries and exercise and excise control. These control exercised in many forms. Like say, for example, in the parliamentary form of government, as we have in India, the legislature has many power over executive. Say, for example, if in fact the executive and parliamentary forms of government continue in office with the pleasure and goodwill of the legislature. In other words, the executive should obtain the majority support among the members of the legislature. For example, if you could see the India's prime minister and cabinet, as it is considered as an executive. Okay, being is in a legislative, you would be considered as an executive. So legislative sometimes it can also regulate the behavior of an executive in a country as like parliament form of government. So continue in office with the majority support of parliament members, like which is in legislature. Whenever the executive loses the confidence of the legislature, it has to resign from office. Once the prime minister's office, prime minister resign his post, all the council of minister which will be deprived. There is no chance at all to continue further. So as if you could see that, and the functions as a part of executive function, there is a very truly that it shall be, makes it out very perfectly that in order to understanding the better things which is related to the country. Like legislature also has a right to discuss on the budget, budgetary matter, and also it takes the report from the Public Accounts Committee. It also seeks the report from the Controller and Auditor General of India, Public Estimates Committee. All the reports shall be discussed under the legislative functions of the Parliament, isn't it? So as the financial functions was the lifeblood of an organization. Without the finance, we can't run out. Related to allocations, related to imposition of the taxes, and all of them that it will be discussed under the, certain legislative functions as implementation of budget and stopping of a budget, cutting down of a budget and impeach the budget, all such kind of a thing that it shall comes under the purview of a financial functions of the and country. Is that clear to everyone? Next one, judicial functions. What are the judicial functions to be given to the legislature? Can anybody tell me what is judiciary?
Judiciary says implement law. Judicial law. Appoint Chief Justice Supreme Court, I think.
Yes. Yes. See, judicial functions as given to the legislature, that is one of the organs of the government. What are the, what kind of a judicial functions it performs? Being as a legislature, as if you could see the legislature, it would be a complete body of a politicians. Like if you see the Rajya Sabha, if you see the legislature and all of them. And generally, we see, president, vice president, both of them, okay, would be a part and parcel of the legislative functions. And also at the same time, other judges of the Supreme Court and High Court and all of them who are accountable to the, their own, but in some cases, there should be, again, there should be an in the words of legislative functions of the parliament. For example, say, in a United States of America, if you could see, the upper house in the USA, the Senate conduct the proceedings of the impeachment, which are referred by the lower house in order to removing of judges. Similarly, in India also, if any kind of the, chief justice and judges, if they are being committed mistake, in order to removal of them, there would be a procedure that it takes place in the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha will investigate and conducts the trial. If the charges are impeached or made by the Rajya Sabha, the other house, the Lok Sabha investigates and conducts the trial. So as in keeping in view of that, the things, related to Rajya Sabha, if it is commit a mistake, that it shall be impeached by the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha commit the mistake, that it shall be impeached by the Rajya Sabha. Similarly, there would be also the thing that the Rajya Sabha will, foreheaded in order to taking a judicial functions as like a court. Like for example, the chief judges of the High Court removal procedure, if it is takes place, who will remove them in Chief Justice of India if he commits a mistake? Is it that and can be an removed from? Yes, there is a procedure. There is a certain procedure that it can be posted in the parliament. There should be a discussion in the Rajya Sabha. There should be a discussion in this, Lok Sabha on the grounds of impeachment. If it is can be proven time to time, it should be removed from a kind of and as is from his position, being as a Supreme Court Chief Justice, he should be removed from the House as it is been approved by the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This is a one kind of a judicial functions which also can be performed by the legislature as a part of the organs of the government. And also the same time, another responsibility also is given to the legislature, that is electoral function. What sort of electoral functions would be there? Say, for example, here we have in India, Parliament. All the parliamentary members, means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha members, will they, conduct the elections? Who will elect the president actually in India? As you are studying an electoral functions of legislature, who will conduct the elections of Rashtrapati? Who will vote it in the Rashtrapati elections?
Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha members.
Yes, electoral college members.
Rajya Sabha members is a representative bodies. Rajya Sabha. Lok Sabha is a local body, I think.
Yes, it is true as you are saying.
Lok Sabha's representative is selected by people's.
Yes.
Rajya Sabha's representative selected by our representatives.
Yeah, it is true. Lok Sabha members are being elected by people. Rajya Sabha people are being nominated by the government. Similarly, the legislature will also involve into some electoral procedure in the electoral college that is to be made for, electing the president of India. In India is a republic country. Why do we say the republic country? Means head of the nations are to be elected. Here it's not a nominated position. If you could see the president and vice president, it's all are being and elected through the electoral college. No one will be come through the hereditary positions or nomination method. Do you understand my point? So as in the electoral functions, the legislative body that also conduct the elections for the electoral college, that it should be a symbolic to the democratic systems of the world, isn't it? So as what I'm trying to say here is that similarly, this can be, you can see in some of the countries like Switzerland, like United States of America, other countries also would be followed as a responsibility of legislative functions as electoral function. And also the same time, ventilation of grievances. I think what it does, the legislature is that while it's making of law, it doesn't have only the authority to making of law, but also after making of law, what kind of a disturbances it is being taking place at the time of making of laws and after the making of laws, that it shall be comes under the purview of this ventilation of grievances, that is become another functions of this legislature. And ventilation. See, for example,
Sir,
if any policy,
reviances ante what
sorry,
is meant by reviances?
your voice is not clear. Once again, speak up.
Sir, reviances means
Grievances means if any kind of a commitment of mistakes or complaints or any kind of an, illegality, that it shall be discussed under the legislature. Say, for example, you might have seen in the legislative discussions, the parliamentarians would discuss about a scams. Okay, Parliament also discussed about some other, violences, abuse, domestic violences, former suicide issues, terrorism matters, okay, minority issues, rural poverty, problems of tribals, and all these problems can be discussed under the legislature. So it is a body, it is a place where it can discuss all the grievances of the country. Grievances means complaints or illegality, it's or a kind of a bad effects, and all of them it comes under the purview of that. So in the parliament, while making of laws, the many things shall be discussed under the parliament about the country's behavior, how to eradicate a terrorism, that it shall be discussed under the parliament. What kind of the budget should be, how much budget should be allocated for them, what kind of the methods to be followed, and all such kind of a thing that it can be discussed under the ventilation of grievances. Sometime you might have seen that some government will mix it out. Some government sometimes will mix it out a kind of an disturbances, like they do some scams, they do some illegality, they do some kind of an things which are against to the court, which are against to the people on the grounds of it, and anything which is related to that, that it shall be discussed under the parliament. It's being a part of ventilation of grievances today, and also the parliament which is taking a lot of responsibility in order to appeasement of the people, those who are living under below poverty line. నార్మల్గా ఒక ఫ్యామిలీ కానీ ఒక కుటుంబం కానీ బిలో పావర్టీ లైన్ గా ఉన్నప్పుడు వాళ్ళకి సంబంధించినటువంటి స్కీమ్స్ కానీ పాలసీస్ ఏ విధంగా తీసుకురావాలి, ఎంత మొత్తంలో తీసుకురావాలి, ఎలా బెనిఫిట్స్ వాళ్ళకి అందించాలి, ఎలా బెనిఫిట్స్ అందిస్తే వాళ్ళ యొక్క లైఫ్ అనేది సెట్ అవుతుంది, వాళ్ళు బీపీఎల్ నుంచి అబో పావర్టీ లైన్ కి ఎట్లా తీసుకురావాలి, పువర్ నుంచి రిచ్ లోకి ఎట్లా తీసుకురావాలి అనే అన్ని కూడా, ఆల్ దీస్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ కెన్ బి డిస్కస్ అండర్ ద పార్లమెంట్, దట్ ఇట్ ఇస్ బికమ్ అ ventilation of grievances. Not only all these responsibilities which it can be happen by the legislature, but also there is a miscellaneous functions extra. Miscellaneous means it is also parliament also performs the extra functions that it shall be comes under the miscellaneous functions. The legislature also performs certain miscellaneous functions. Rather than this, all the functions which we have discussed so far. And also it is constitutes a commissions if any matter is becomes a serious. Like say for example in the 2014, the Telangana bifurcation was in essence in the 2014 before. So the Sri Krishna committee, which have been appointed in order to understand the issues of both the state, why do Telangana people want to become a separate state? Why Andhra people are being, dominating other Telangana people? That's all, and we can understand by this. Yes. When Telangana issue has come into the effect, when people are asking the separate state, the government to the legislature, which is an appointed a commission, that was a Sri Krishna commission, a Sri Krishna committee. This committee would work on to identify the reality, genuine things, whether the asking reservation, asking separatist movement, whether it is unacceptable or not, is it true or not, all these things. And further to getting known, then appointment of the commissions also can be takes place. That all comes into the purview of this miscellaneous functions of and this legislature. So all this, and we could see legislature is a place where we can go and discuss. It is an informed area where we can tell this is a method of democracy, isn't it? In order to protection of the democracy, one should need to understand the method of legislative working and distribution of powers and all of them. After distribution of the power, how legislature are being used, and what are the things are to be needed to, development of country. All such discussions will be taken place into the parliamentary, the legislative functions. If you have any kind of a questions related to legislature, doubt, you can ask me the questions and I'll give you still 5 minutes of time. Then after we'll start the new judiciary.
Yes, sir, I have doubts. Yesterday you had told that in the last 10 minutes you will clear the doubts, but then you left the class. Sir, from yesterday's topic, I'm having some doubts. Hello.
Yeah, okay, no problem. No problem. In the last 10 minutes, I will answer doubts to you. In yesterday's
Sir,
somebody was speaking. Can I
direct
speak up
popular
once
election.
again?
Hello, is my voice audible? Yeah, sir, direct popular election is practiced in India. Direct popular election.
Yes, yes. Yeah, audible. Tell me.
Sir, direct popular election is practiced in India.
Yeah, direct elections we practice in India. Because in village sarpanch to up to national president, we follow the elective method, and almost it would be in the form of direct popular elections in India. Do you understand?
Yes. So, sir, what is the duration of chief executive ruling in direct
Okay,
popular
fine.
election?
So we'll start up with judiciary.
Sir, what
In
is
a
the
direct
duration of
popular
chief
elections, it would be a
executive?
fixed 5 years of tenure would be there, but it differs from country to country. I said yesterday, in a direct popular, this
So,
chief
sir, what is the
executive
difference between
is
direct
a
and
prime
indirect
minister.
elections?
Okay, will be treated as a chief executive. Would be in an executive system. We call the prime minister. Indian prime minister fixed tenure for 5 years. He would be in the chair. Do you understand?
Yes, sir. So, sir, what is the difference between direct and indirect elections?
Okay. You're asking the questions is that what is the difference between the direct election and indirect
Yes.
election?
Yes,
Direct
sir.
election would be the direct election which it can voter can elected a leader. For example, you are the voter if you are possessed 18 years of age, you can
Yes.
elect the voter and you can elect the leader as it is in the form of MLA. Okay. Indirect
sir.
election is an election. Whatever you have elected the people, these people will elected somebody. Like MLA elected somebody. Like for example, in electoral college, all the MLAs would be the members of this electoral college. In this electoral college, these MLAs would elected president of India. So president elections is truly considered as an indirect election. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Do you know about
So,
the
in the
sarpanch?
indirect, in indirect elections, the people will elect their prime minister or president, but in direct election, the MLAs will elect their prime minister or president.
You know, yes, indirect. That is indirect. Okay, indirect means you are not voters would not be in the forefront. Your leader would be in the forefront to electing a somebody. In a direct, you are
Yes,
the
sir.
sole responsibility person to cast your vote and decide the leader who should be your MLA. Okay.
Okay, sir.
But where are you from? You know, your voice is truly breaking, so I'm not able to understand your question. That's the reason I'm asking twice and thrice. Okay. So fine, no
Okay, sir.
problem. And let me, go with this. And the 9th unit, that is the judiciary. Unit 9, judiciary, that is a third organ of a government. This judiciary is the term which we have taken from 1935 Indian Government Act. Here, most of the times you see judiciary means you just didn't remember court system in any other country. For example, in India, judiciary, we have 3 levels of the court system in India in order to protection of it. What is the major responsibility of a judiciary as an organ of the government? the major responsibility of a judiciary was to checks and balances on while making of law, to checks and balances on when laws are being implementation. So it has a right to involve, it has a capacity to checks and balances on legislative made laws, and it has in every capacity to checks and balances on implemented laws by the executive. So the third organ of the government would be the independent organ. There would be no chance at all to, interventions of this legislative and executive in the, responsibility of a judiciary. And judiciary is one of the important branches of the government, as I have said that. Then, it is also along with the judiciary, legislature, and executive, it does the work. The main functions of, if you could see, the judiciary is that to render justice to the people in the context of conflict by interpreting various laws. The judiciary act as a guardian of the individual. Similarly, judiciary also can be treated as a custodian of Indian Constitution. Means the protection of individual rights to protection of whole country. It is hands of judiciary. If there is no point of reason to entertainment of judiciary, there is a chance to see the jungle law in our world, isn't it? Today, as we have seen the abuses of women, there's killing cases, and all of there should be a prayer, the thing in order to protect out, in order to make the people in the justice way, isn't it? So as if you could see the importance of the justice system, what are the principles of modern system which we have to see? How modern system will execute it on that? The first principle, if you could see that, judiciary applies various laws in making judicial trials and award punishment to the guilty suggested by the law of itself about the violation. The first function of the, judiciary was that, first principle was that, the principle of judiciary was that only to, making judicial trials on the committed mistakes people, like say for example punishment, it decides a punishment on the basis of intensity of the mistake which are committed by the victim. Okay, it also works on to represent the justice for all the peoples and throughout the country. Similarly, the second, the element, if you could see, judiciary renders judgment and in certain cases award punishment after thoroughly hearing all the parties of the disputes concerned with the fates act. So it never goes directly to mix it out and judgment. It goes on a trials and it makes it a lot of probing. It decides it and how it should be there and all of the finally it gives a judge. Do you see any court which gives in one-day judgment in your life? I think you might have seen many of the dispenses which is going on beside your room and in front of your room. Could you see in a one day there would be a chance of to get the judgment from court?
No. No, sir.
No, it gets delayed. There is a procedure. So there is a procedure to file the FIR. The FIR filing after that, it will be submitted to the Chief Justice of the court, advocate. Then after he listened it, that is called hearing stage. After that, he'll go on probing that and reinvestigate the case, whether it is right or wrong. All of them, this would become a long process. Sometimes it takes in 50 to 60 years also. Sometimes it could be taken as in 1 or 2 years also, but it is taking time. Instantly, it cannot be happen. So, in order to making and finding the judgment, also it does it. Responsibility judiciary. If any person who have committed a mistake, in order to, punish them, generally judiciary will work on that. The another thing, if you could see that, it also makes betterment between crime and punishment. In other words, smaller punishment can be awarded for a bigger offenses as vice versa. Sometimes, we see that in how the judiciary can be protected. Today, as you can see, if somebody who, occupy your land, you talk about injustice. So where actually the justice can be takes place? There the justice can be takes place at the place of the court and where they listen, they investigate, they understand. Sometimes there's a big offenses which is required. There was small mistake, the small offenses, that is, there should be requirement of a big, punishment, isn't it? So these big punishment and small punishment, that it can be defined by the court system only. The Indian judiciary system, which it can be held by the court system. We have three levels of the courts into the country. One is a Supreme Court, that is for all the states and all the regions of the country. And also for every states in India, we have our own court that can be called it as a high court. But few states doesn't have, a separate high court, but still they're used to depend on. Say for example, before 2000, after 2014, for 2 years of the span, Andhra peoples have, depended on Telangana court. So as these kind of things which we see as a part of this and judicial functions, three levels of the court, and the district level, district session court, and the state level, state high courts. Do we have one high court, or all the states have their own high courts?
States have their own high court.
Yes. How many Supreme Courts we have in the world? We have in the country of India.
One.
So that is the apex court. Why do we call the apex court? Means there's a single where it can look after everybody's judgment in the right way, isn't it? So the judiciary, which it can be, the justice can be rendered through the method of practicing this court system. We have a court system that it shall be treated as an protector of justice, isn't it? So as the functions of judiciary, what it does, the first function of the duty, if you could see, it is a protection of civil rights. Civil rights means, do you know anybody? What is the meaning of civil rights?
The rights of citizens.
Yes.
Personal.
See, civil is a word, it makes it a thing about a citizen. Any citizen protection can come under the purview of a court. As I have said, custodian of Indian Constitution can be called it as a judiciary of India. It is a responsibility of a judiciary to protect each and every individual across the country. So as the first function of the judiciary, it is that protection of civil rights. Citizens' rights has to be protected. The second one, protection of the federation. Federation means the word Fodus we have taken from the other language. Fodus means a group of states. India is a group of state country. Here we have in all the states, irrespective of the caste and creed and all of them. So this judiciary also, makes it out to protection of a federal feature, federal government further, isn't it? So that was the second function of the court.
And also means court, sir.
Sorry?
Sir, what is the meaning of judiciary, sir? Judiciary means court, sir.
Judiciary means in order to checks and balances on mistakes committed by legislature and executive and any citizen, that it will be punished. So Indian judiciary system can be classified into the court system. We have a court system in order to protect the judiciary. So High Court, Supreme Court, and Sessions Courts and the district criminal courts like that. What is the meaning of judiciary in the sense? Means it's a place where provided a justice to everyone, isn't it?
Okay,
you can
sir.
say courts. You can say courts, no problem. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So as the next one is a custodian of the Constitution. Custodian means is a guardian. Okay. For example, see how your father there in the family to protect everybody. Similarly, the judiciary is considered to be custodian to protect the 120 crores of the populations in the world, as it made the laws in order to protections of that. So hence, every provision are to be questioned in the court in order to protect it, in order to live it. Say, for example, unnecessarily the fundamental rights are being suspended by government.
Sir,
Where do you
please
approach?
explain protection of the federation.
Protection of?
The federation.
What is that? Protection of federation. Yes. It protects the relation between the states and central government, isn't it? Like India is a federal country means there is India is not only one country. India is a union of states. India में यहाँ पे एक ही country नहीं है, बल्कि सारे के सारे states India में ही आते. तो responsibility यही होती कि इंडिया के सारे states को यहाँ पे protect कर सके. तो जहाँ कहाँ भी अगर आप सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट अगर किसी स्टेट्स को भी यहाँ पे धोखा पहुंचाया या नहीं तो कुछ भी पॉलिसीज को डिस्टर्बेंसेस किया, तो सारे स्टेट्स लोग कोर्ट को भी अप्रोच करने का अथॉरिटी रहेंगे. तब जब भी कोर्ट अगर एक स्टेट अगर कोर्ट को अप्रोच हो सका, ताकि central government is making something different or not been allocating the fund and not been giving priority, then the state can approach to the court. So through the courts and जहाँ पे जितना भी grievances है सारे grievances को court resolve करेगा और यही responsibility बोलेगा कि हर central government की यही responsibility होती है कि state को protect करना and the central government को develop करना only not developing a central, but also there should be a responsibility of the country where it should take the responsibility to protecting of in every state in India. If it is not so, the state can approach to the court and can avail benefits from the Constitution of India through the courts. Do you listen?
Yes, sir.
Can you clear?
Yes, sir.
Protection of state and central government to make the better relations between the state and central government. To make the better
Sir,
Sir, your voice is not audible.
sir,
to make the better environment between the state and central, to make the better relations between the state and central government, courts will help out them, isn't it? Is it my voice is clear to everybody? Okay.
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And also, what it does in as being a part of the judiciary here is that I'll say some other things also, and some, interpretation of law. Okay. Interpretation of के law माने होते हैं यहाँ पे किसी भी केस में या किसी भी हमें मुद्दे पे यहाँ पे सही तरीके के जजमेंट देना, ताकि कोर्ट को भी इसी तरह का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी रहेगा हर सारे चीज के यहाँ पे बारे में सुनकर उसको सही तरीके में जजमेंट देने का अथॉरिटी यहाँ पे कोर्ट्स को किया गया. देखिए फॉर एग्जांपल you should understand that in any cases what courts are doing here, that first they hear, first they call for a trial, they understand the things and they make it possible to give the proper judgment to the concerned case. So as these different interpretations of the laws can be happening. Similarly at the same time judiciary को भी यहाँ पे law making functions दिया जाता. Other responsibilities that law making functions of judiciary. हर जुडिशरी को देखिए फॉर एग्जांपल देयर इज आल्सो द मेथड व्हिच इट कैन मेक्स इट्स ओन लॉस. फॉर एग्जांपल देखिए जुडिशियल एक्टिविज्म और जुडिशियल रिव्यू ये दो तरह के वेपన్స్ होते हैं जुडिशरी. ఇక్కడ ఏం జరుగుతుందంటే ఏదైనా తప్పు జరిగినప్పుడు అంటే గతంలో ఇవ్వలేనటువంటి జడ్జిమెంట్స్ ఏదైతే ఉన్నాయో కొత్త జడ్జిమెంట్ కొత్త కేసులు కూడా రావచ్చు. यहाँ पे न्यू तरह के केसेस भी आने के लिए बहुत पॉसिबिलिटी है. इसी तरह का से अगर कौन सा भी केस अगर नया है सारे 1950 से लेकर 1950 से पहले लेकर 2020 तक कौन सा भी वहां पे जजमेंट अगर नहीं है वैसा तरह का मुद्दा अगर आया तो उसमें नए तरह के रूल्स बनाने के लिए भी यहाँ सुप्रीम कोर्ट को भी अथॉरिटी दिया गया. जैसा कि देखिए न्यू बेंच को अपॉइंट करना और न्यू कंसोर्शियम को डेवलप करना और न्यू तरह के पॉलिसीज को बनाना है सारे चीज यहाँ पे कोर्ट को दिया जाता है, isn't it? And also the same time other functions if you could see the judiciary advisory function या किसी को सलाह देना. देखिए 143 आर्टिकल जो है इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 143 के तहत यहाँ पे कोर्ट सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जज ने यहाँ पे ऑफ इंडिया को थोड़े चीजों पे थोड़े किसी मुद्दों पे यहाँ पे एडवाइस देने की अथॉरिटी भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट को दिया जाती. देखिए फॉर एग्जांपल sometime the president of India can perform the judiciary function. Can you tell me the example? देखिए प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने थोड़े समय पे ओके इन एक्सेप्शनल कंडीशन he may practiced a kind of an authority of judiciary at what point of time ఇక్కడ భారత రాష్ట్రపతి ఉన్నటువంటి అపరిమితమైనటువంటి అధికారాలు న్యాయపరమైన విషయాల్లో కూడా ఉపయోగించవచ్చు అలా అవి ఏ సందర్భాల్లో ఉపయోగించవచ్చు ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ కేసుని తగ్గించేటటువంటి విషయం కావచ్చు కేసుని అంటే మార్చే విషయం పార్డన్ కావచ్చు రిప్రై కావచ్చు फॉर एग्जाम्पल संजय दत्त केस में यहाँ ने वहां पे बेल दिया गया प्रेसिडेंट को अप्लाई करने के बाद में वहां पे जितना भी केस उनका सीवियर था वो केस को वहां पे नीचे आई मीन मींस दे मेड इट एज एन लोअर केस पहले तो बहुत लाइफ डेथ का केस ऐसे तो बनाए थे बाद में आप सबमिटेड आई मीन रिक्वेस्ट टू द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया दे इन्वॉल्व अगर ऐसे आई मीन इन ऑर्डर टू एग्जीक्यूटिंग द फंक्शंस जुडिशरी फंक्शंस ऑफ द देन प्रेसिडेंट सीक एडवाइस फ्रॉम चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया अगर आज सारे चीज में किसी का भी इंडियन सिटीजन ने ऐसी अथॉरिटी है इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में कि हर सिटीजन अपने अपने केस के बारे में अगर कुछ कम करने के लिए यहाँ पे केस बदलाने के लिए तो एक कौन सा भी सिटीजन प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया को अप्लाई कर सकते हैं अगर आप प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया अप्लाई करने के बाद में इसके ऊपर डिसीजन लेने के समय he may seek the advices from chief justice of india in order to use his power isn't it so that it supreme court and the indian judiciary has an all the responsibility to make it an advisory function and also at the same time court of record say for example जितने भी तरह के यहाँ पे जजमेंट दिए जाते हैं किसी भी समय आज या कल या सिंस 1950 से पहले तो जितने भी केसेस है यहाँ पे जुडिशरी की भी अथॉरिटी कहेगी ये सारे के सारे रिकॉर्ड को केसेस को रिकॉर्ड करना चाहिए लेकिन 90 कभी कभी आप कभी भी केसेस अगर देखा जाए तो अभी का केस को यहाँ पे जज ने 1956 में क्या हुआ था वो केस को जजमेंट आई मीन रिफर करते हैं तो विच मीन्स द एवरी कोर्ट इन द इंडियन जुडिशरी हैज एन आई मीन एक्स्ट्राऑर्डिनरी authority that it can put and as and records for an evidence so all the judgment records which will be kept as a archives in the judiciary system that it can be called it as a court of record can be preserved for further uses similarly miscellaneous responsibilities
Sir, I
if you
didn't
could see,
understood when
even
the Prime
judiciary
Minister
appoints
will make. Sir, I didn't understood that when the Prime Minister will have the right to make decisions on the behalf of judiciary.
Sumaira Shehzadi, your voice is not clear. Please speak up once again. Otherwise, if you are not in, I mean, network, please come out of that, I mean, home and to be in the proper network so that you can ask the questions to me. I will answer for your question.
Sir, my doubt is,
Yes.
When the Prime Minister will have
Someone
the
asked-
right, when the Prime Minister will have the right to make decisions
When the Prime
on
Minister
behalf
will
of
have-
judiciary. The right to make decision on behalf of judiciary.
Yes. Yes. Indian Prime Minister has given authority by the Constitution that take decisions on some judiciary matters. For example, you know, if somebody have applied for a reduction of his punishment, okay, somebody, a citizen of India can also appeal to the president to reduce his punishment or change his punishment to
Sir. Sir.
Hello, sir.
Sir.
Hello. Hello, sir. Sir is not there.
Sir.
Sir. Sir.
Sir.
Voice is not clear, sir. Sir, voice is not clear.
Sir is there in the class, but he has muted himself. Just now the sir has left the class.
Oh. Class is finished. Hello.
Yes, it's 11:31 now, so maybe sir has left the class because the time is over.
In
This is
previous
second
classes,
sem, na?
Yes, it is second semester.
Yes, yes.
I have
I'll
one.
be back on online. Please ask the questions. The rest of them, please be in a mute.
Okay, sir.
If somebody asks a question related to that, and a president has an authority to give and use his powers in terms of judiciary matters. A citizen can apply for reduce the punishment to change the punishment. In such cases, to give the reply to the citizen, a president may seek advice from the Supreme Court judge. Isn't it? So president has an every right to give pardon, reprieve, and other consent things. Okay.
Yes, sir.
In such cases, he may seek advice from a Supreme Court chief justice because he doesn't know anything to how to reduce the punishment and how to change the punishment. So on the advices of the Supreme Court, he will give the reply, and he will also have an every right to reduce the punishments of citizen. Okay.
Sir, the
Okay,
Prime
sir.
Minister will have only this right to reduce the punishment or to increase the punishment.
Yes, yes, he has authority.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So not Prime Minister, sir, President, sir.
Prime Minister or President,
I'm
sir?
not talking about Prime Minister, it's a president only. I'm talking about a president. Okay. And next, anybody ask the questions, and I think time is completed. Tomorrow we shall start the other lesson.
Hello, sir.
Sir, you had told that you will start from the first lesson. We will go orderly.
Understood. These three organs are very important to understand. So I have said three organs. Tomorrow it would be a first lesson. Okay.
Sir, judicial review, sir.
Judicial review.
Yeah.
Yeah, review would be in the later. Okay. I'll tell you in the review tomorrow, and then also we'll go to fine.
Okay.
Review would not be there in a lesson. However, if it comes in a lesson wise, I will tell you. Time is up, please, and we'll call you back.
How many lessons are completed in this political science? In next.
Hello, sir.
Fourth lesson.
What?
How many lessons are completed?
3 lessons finished. Now it is fourth one. 6, 7, 8 lessons finished.